a lot of our friends were like struggling to have kids, so we were like, oh, this might take us a while, so we'll have time and this and that, and it didn't take us any time at all. So,
Ah. My
fucking
guy said
first
he's got.
woo, first try, So,
uh,
um, that is fucked that you're on a LinkedIn. I don't even know the last time I was on LinkedIn. Yeah, dude, that's hilarious. Makeup content, not writing new shit as I was growing as a performer was regressing me.
It's Johnny Late Night! And now here's your host, Johnny Rogers!
Welcome back, everyone, to the Johnny Rogers Show. This is episode number 85, and we got Marc Anthony Sinagoga on the podcast today. But first, before we get into this episode, if you want these episodes ad-free and exclusive, which means before anyone else gets it on YouTube or any other streaming platforms, just go to patreon.com/TheJohnnyRogers, and that's how you get access to these episodes. Now, today on the podcast, Marc and I, his word of choice was baby for the podcast because he is entering fatherhood. So just drop a congratulations down in the comments from Marc there. I'm sure he'll be happy to see that. Plus, he has a new comedy special, well, an album really, that he actually printed into vinyl. We get all into that and the making of that. It's called Well Fed. That is also available on Spotify. And as always, these links are always in the description down below. Now, when I asked Marc about his bio, because usually I read people's bios out, I was like, is the bio on your website accurate? And he went, sure. So I want to read from some of his bio off his website here. Marc Anthony Sinagoga is a young stand-up comedian born and raised in Richmond Hill, Ontario. Audiences gathered to see Marc Anthony tell his outlandish life experiences with brilliant imitation, wit, and lovable stage presence. He recreates his life experiences as an overweight Italian going against the family grain in a melting pot society. Marc Anthony performs across North America, Europe, and the UK for diverse audiences in a variety of venues. Now, with the fundamentals of comedy under his belt, he continues to work on his craft of stand-up comedy and script writing in the heart of Toronto. He has set out to bring his talents across the globe with the motto, everyone deserves a laugh. They certainly do. And won't stop until the people get what they came for. Throughout his career, he's been part of JFL 42, invited to the 2017 and 2018 Dallas Comedy Festival, Arizona's Big Pine Comedy Festival in 2018, and North Carolina's Cape Fear Comedy Festival in 2017. He was also a finalist in both the Cleveland Comedy Festival as well as the Border City Comedy Festival and the winner of the Brantford Comedy Festival as well. I remember that. I remember when he won. He's a great, incredible comedian, and then when the pandemic took over, he went full force into sketch comedy. You might have even seen a lot of his sketches on Instagram or TikTok. I mean, there's the famous one that has like almost 43 million plays on it now of him and his wife. Marc is an absolute standout guy, and you're going to really enjoy this episode. Like I said, don't forget to drop a congratulations to him and down in the comments below. But without any further delay, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming my friend and yours, Marc Anthony Sinagoga. At the beginning of every episode, I always ask the guests to think about everything that's happening in your life right now, successes and failures, and then just whatever the first word is that comes to mind that is something that you either feel passionately about right now or is something that's impacting you right now and you just want to talk about it. Let's start with like what that word is.
Okay, we can let's start with baby. Let's do that.
Baby.
Let's do that.
So this is my follow-up question is, what does the word baby then mean to you at this moment?
I mean, I got a baby coming into my life right now. So that's what's going on.
And that's hence the moving process as well.
Yeah, so like got married and stuff and over the pandemic, and then we were in a condo, tight spot, and then decided to attempt the making baby situation. A lot of our friends were like struggling to have kids, so we were like, oh, this might take us a while, so we'll have time and this and that, and it didn't take us any time at all. So
My
fucking
guy said
first
he's got.
woo, first try,
uh,
so yeah, we kind of had to pivot and get rid of our place, and Now I'm shacked up at my grandmother's place. I'm doing um, the Italian move here, living with Nonna. So I'm living with my Nonna
Nice.
at the moment, just in transition while I'm looking for a place. And also, she has the space here that I can have a child and all that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
So yeah,
That's,
that's
I also love how your current situation directly impacts your content creation. Because lately it has been a lot of Nona videos.
mhm.
Or and is that the case where you're kind of just, because I really want to get into, like, create. I love talking about creativity, really, and we can talk more about baby stuff if you want to. But the a lot of people, they'll have, like, I'm gonna do this style, and that's what works for me, and I'm gonna stick with that. And the situations in the comedy sketches always vary, or whatever the case, but the style is always the same. But
Mhm.
for yourself, hearing that move, I'm like, oh, is that what's happening? Like, is it a direct influence usually of what is happening currently in that moment in your life?
Yeah, and I mean, this is my problem with content is it's hard to actually put a style on what I'm doing because it's such a grow with me type page. Like my page is very much like, hey, you're going to go through life with me. So my stand up is going to be a reflection of where I'm at. My content's going to be a reflection of where I'm at. So that's just sort of how it is. And now the problem with that is that I never have a style that I stick to. I never have videos that I stick to. I mean, I have characters that I've been sticking with for a long time, like the Doug Ford thing, even the Nono character. That's been a character I've been
Yeah.
doing for a long time. But now that I'm living with them, it's content overload. Like everything that I do and
Yeah,
see,
yeah,
it's all around me, and it's just like I
yeah,
could flip the camera right now and show you my grandmother like outside just doing something that is
yeah.
the most stereotypical thing on earth, So,
That's amazing. Like,
mhm.
I love that, because I have the same thought of always thinking, like, what's my comedy style? And I'm realizing it as you're saying it too, that that's what you're kind of seeking. But I think what we forget is that when I see your video, or even someone doing something similar to what you do, my brain goes, "Oh, that's Marc Anthony, that's Synagoga's." it's
Right.
it's like we keep searching for what's my style in terms of formatting, maybe, sure, but
Hmm.
I know what you're talking about when you say style. It's that recognizable, brandable thing, and we're searching for something based on what we see without
Hmm.
realizing that you yourself is the style.
Hmm.
Like, only you could pull off those particular characters in the way that you decided to present them, in the lines that you wrote for them. And I think that's like a really interesting moment, because you can do just as you're saying, like, you just see, your grandmother outside gardening, and you're like, content idea comes into mind of like a character or a moment that you can put out.
Hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, that's I mean, again, it is difficult because I think the content creation of where we're at right now with like brand deals and all that kind of stuff, it's difficult for a brand to look at my page and my following and be like, okay, we're going to pay this guy to make videos for us and we know exactly how it's going to turn out, which you don't, right? Whereas somebody
Yeah,
like, Austin Alexander or Che
he's
Durena
great.
or,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, both those guys, you know exactly
They're
what you're going
awesome.
to get,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
I don't have that. And that's sort of been my own fault and demise in the content creation. But at the same time, I try to treat it like stand up.
I, I
Sorry.
wonder. I get what you're saying when you try to treat it like stand up, but I wonder if you could filter brands through popular characters. Like, you have the Doug Ford one, you have the Italian grandpa that you're putting out there. You have these like kind of core characters, and I wonder if you can almost like sort of like sell it in like a cameo kind of way. Like, you want me to
And
sell your product
that's
through the voice of this character? That's what you're going to get. Whatever that character decides to advertise it as, I'm advertising it as that character, you know?
and that's what I've been trying to do. Like, for
Yeah.
example, trying to think of the one that I did. I did a Harvey's one, for example, and I was my no in the garden. So
Yeah.
that's sort of like, I'm in the garden, I'm selling fresh stuff. You know what I'm
That's great.
saying?
Yeah, yeah,
So
that's what I
yeah,
mean.
Yeah, and
I
that's
could
sort of
see
like
like a tomato paste company or something. You get like Heinz, like, and you're just like crushing tomatoes in the backyard or whatever.
yeah, and you know what's funny? Like sometimes I try to approach those companies being like, listen, man, this is
You
what I
should
can
just
do.
make an ad. You should. That's what you should
Yeah.
do. Is make it. Just start like not all of the content, obviously, but like have one of the videos just be a fake ad for Heinz ketchup, and it's
Yeah.
whatever, right? Because I've heard success before in a lot of creators where they just did. I think it was Casey Neistat. He just
Mm,
started shooting like fake Nike commercials. Like he just made his own Nike commercials. They loved it, and they ended up using it and paying him for it.
that's awesome.
And
Yeah.
so always a possibility there, especially now with Instagram, you could just tag them as a collaborator.
Yeah, I love that. I do that
It's so great.
so often and people hate it, but I love it.
It's perfect because it's in the name collaborator. Like that's what social media should be. It should be like, hey, I'm letting the people know that this other person worked with me on this project. Go check them out too.
Hmm. Yeah.
It, Oh, I want to know too because it can often be difficult when couples decide to film content together. Was it difficult getting your wife to be in videos with you? And like how was her thought process on it after that one went crazy? Like whatever, I think
Uh,
7 billion or something.
It's like, yeah, it's at like 50 million. It's
Yeah,
fucked.
it's crazy.
It's
I'm way
stupid.
off.
No, no, it's fine. I thought you said 7 billion. Did you say
Yeah, you're like,
I was like,
yeah, that's right.
yeah, I was like, this guy's
I gotta
fucked.
check my
Um,
feed.
no, it wasn't that difficult because, she has a bit of a performance background. Like she was a
Okay.
dancer and stuff. So like performing isn't new to her. Comedy timing, I say, is so like, but again, that's just you can direct that really and
Hmm.
just being like, hey, can you just mimic the sounds that I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah,
at
yeah,
this
yeah.
rhythm, and from that point of view, it's very easily coachable. Um, and a lot of the times, again, it's the content's all around you, right? Like she's just the things that she's going through and that we're going through is relatable to everybody because everyone's gone through, or every couple for the most part has gone
Hmm.
through pregnancy or marriage issues or whatever.
Mark, it's too heavy. Please, just hold it for me.
What, like lift it up?
Yeah.
Like this?
Oh.
Wait a sec. So we're just finding that like any argument we have or anything, we're now training ourselves to be like, oh, that could be
I
something. You know what I'm saying? So,
wonder if that
which
almost takes you out of the argument in a way. You're like,
for sure. Yeah.
yeah. Like
Yeah.
instead of having makeup sex now, you have makeup content. It's like,
Yo,
this is
that's
gonna be so
how.
funny. We're gonna laugh at this so hard later.
Yeah, dude, that's hilarious. Makeup content. Dude, that's fucking funny. Yeah, I
Yeah,
like
use
that.
it if you do a bit about that because that's directly your life.
I love that.
I'm
I
like, I'm
might
not doing
actually
any
use.
makeup content.
That's fucking funny. Listen, I love your wall back there, by the way.
Thanks, man. I
Are those all
want
vinyls?
Yeah, they're all vinyls. This is my actual album. Over the
I
pandemic,
love
I
it.
did a hip hop album because I guess I went a little cuckoo bananas. I was like, let me try rapping because there's no comedy clubs open. And I did not want to perform in a park. Let me tell you that. I was like, I'm good. I'm good on that.
Legit.
Did
I
you
I
did you do a
just
lot? Like
I didn't do
Zoom
that
or
many, no. Zoom, I did quite a few. I did actually ended up doing a lot of like corporates and stuff over
mm.
Zoom, which was terrible, but I mean, whatever. It
I
was
mean,
it was
corporate
paying me,
already
so
bad start and then Zoom.
yeah. But I just made my own vinyl, so I'd love to
Nice.
donate it to your
Dude, I'd
wall, man.
love that. Yeah, 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 for sure. I'll
Yeah.
hit you with my address and I'll throw it up there on the wall.
Yeah,
Who
yeah.
can we get rid of? We can
Literally nobody.
maybe Hedberg. I got two
Are you
George.
fuck?
I got a couple George Carlins on there, so I can take down one of the George Carlins.
Oh, you don't have to take any down. You just put it out of frame up at the top.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'll get it in the shot every time. That's another thing I wanted to ask you about because I found it super interesting that you have like an album and then like a B side to the album where it's
Yeah.
like leftovers is what you called it. What
Hmm.
which is I think it's like what 2 hours of content or something.
Something
That's
like that.
that's crazy. Well, why did you choose to do that versus, maybe save some of that content for your next hour? Because comedians are always usually like, oh shit, I got to write again. I can't use any of this material. I've already put it out.
Well, long answer or short answer?
Long answer. We got time, baby.
You're like, this is a podcast, you
Yeah,
idiot.
yeah. Take your time. Add some ums. Really think about it.
So basically,
cut to an ad? No.
Yeah.
What's up, everybody? This is Marc Anthony Sinagoga, coming to you right from the cantina, the birthplace of everything good in Italian culture, just like my vinyl comedy album, Well Fed. For my debut comedy album, I decided to pay tribute to the original format of stand-up comedy with a double vinyl. All the comedy greats have a vinyl album that we all grew up listening to, so I decided to make my own piece of memorabilia that marks 10 years of doing stand-up comedy. Between Well Fed and Leftovers, you'll be getting 90 minutes of homemade material. The vinyl launches today, so you can buy it on my website, marcanth.com, or go through my link in bio on Instagram. On the front, we got my passport photo from when I was 13, showcasing my peak thickness. The inside, we've got my favorite place on earth, a seat at my nonna's dinner table with the homemade parpadelle. And on the back, we've got your track list and everybody who helped me out on this album. Shout out to Alex Boland, Daniel Marchioni, Adam Royce, and Absolute Comedy. To celebrate the launch of this vinyl, I'm doing a well-fed bundle giveaway. Check out my Instagram for more details. And lastly, I want to thank all my friends, family, and fans for supporting me throughout my career so far. A lot of you are always asking me how to support me on my road to comedy greatness. This is it. Grab yourself a vinyl, guys. If not, all my albums are available on all streaming platforms for free. Thank you guys so much. See you later. Love you lots. Stay laughing.
So the album, the front A side, let's call it, Well Fed, is the one consecutive set. So you listen to it and it's actually, there's callbacks, this, that, and the other. And the other side was just jokes that I used to put in and out of my hour based on where I was and whatever, that were solid bits that worked in most places that I thought were good, but also not good enough to be part of a new hour because so much personal life change is happening that I wasn't able to tell, even the A-side jokes, dude, I wasn't able to tell them anymore as successful because I'm just, it doesn't ring true no more. I'm in a different place in my life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was when I was like, some of those are like a joke off the top is I'm living at home with my parents who live at home with their parents. Like there was a point where me, my parents and grandparents were all living under the same roof. Massive, big Italian family under one roof at one point. So all that content's coming from there, from when I was single, when I was a virgin. Like it's just so dated. Like you're talking, I wrote, it was like some of those were some of the first bits I ever wrote.
Yeah.
I don't know if you find this, but in order to perform old jokes, you have to regress your onstage performer back to then.
You got to really put yourself in the moment.
You're like, I'm way, and I'm like, I'm way more confident as a performer now than I was. I'm way more mature as a person and just different lens on life. So like I have so much more things to talk about that are ringing true now. Like like I said, I'm having a kid, my first kid's coming, all this kind of stuff where there's so much material there, like married, newly married. It's like, what am I going to still fill my 1 hour with fucking, just surface level child or like my first hour, if you will, like, your first,
because you knew it worked, stuff. Right? Like, that's the problem I'm having right now is like, so took the pandemic off, right? And revisited the material I was doing in 2019. And I was like, I had like this new lens to look at it. Like, I'm like, man, I'm almost happy that I didn't do any of that performing for whatever it was, the 2 years or maybe a year, 1 year or something. And then I looked at the material with new eyes and I had this new confidence about it. But now I'm at the point where I'm like, okay, I get it. It works. Like I have to just try a new 7 or whatever every time I go out. But it's always like, you always want to do well, right? So you kind of feel that pull to do it again. But how long did so you said some of it had some of your first jokes. So how long do you think it took to develop this final hour?
Well, like here's the thing, man. Like you can fucking, you can work on jokes forever. Like,
Yeah,
and
forever.
that's the problem. You kind of got to know when to pull the trigger on them and kill the joke. Or at least that's what happened to me. I'm like, okay, some of these jokes I'm not even getting laughs with anymore, and they used to be my fucking closer. So something's
Mm.
wrong. So like, I'm not enjoying telling them and all this stuff. So, but it did take me
Well, I think you cut out a bit
like,
there.
okay. But what I was saying, like, as you know, like it takes a while to develop your onstage voice and persona, right? So, I
Hmm.
mean, the jokes took a while. It took a while for me to get to a good enough place on stage. The jokes themselves, writing of it anyways, it was like 5 to 7 years, I'd say, before all of these jokes. And again, I when I first started, man, no one told me different. Like I was writing new sets all the time. Like
Yeah.
I never did this like, oh, let's do 5 minutes for fucking 10 years and then expand. I did like, oh, let's do a new 20 minutes. I started producing my own shows and, in a small town and everyone kept coming, the same
Yeah.
people. So I would do a new 20 every time. It was all trash, but
But
still,
you're
right?
working your
So
way
I
through it,
had
right? Yeah, yeah.
exactly. So, I had a lot of stuff a lot of material that actually turned into something decent that I was like, man, these are actually still good bits. I don't want to develop them anymore because I'm in a new place. So let's just get them all to a place that are good enough that I could then, retire or whatever,
Yeah,
record.
yeah.
Mhm.
Retire and record. Put them on the shelf.
Put them on the shelf. I'm done. Is the reception okay? Should I move?
It cut in and out a bit. Like your voice was still coming through fine, so I'm like, okay, we're good on that end. The video paused for a moment. If there's
I
a,
don't know.
you're gonna end up sitting next to a router or something.
100%. I will. I'll fucking do that right now if you want me to.
You're like, I'll find this goddamn router. It's in the basement somewhere. Just perfect
Probably
reception though. You're like, well, new podcast studio.
legit.
Um, Another thing I wanted to ask was, when did you really know that you wanted to become a comedian? Because I'm looking at your LinkedIn, man, and it seemed like you knew a long time ago and you were laying out the perfect path for yourself to reach where you're at now. Because there's some times where I talk to people, like I talked to Ryan Long and I was like asking him about, being in a band and then touring and then going into comedy and then moving to New York, and how he's like, I'm doing the same thing I was doing in Toronto except in New York. And I was like, well, did you know that when you were doing it in Toronto, or did it just happen that way? And he was
Mm.
like, no, I knew that. So I want to ask you, because you went to school and you got a bachelor's degree at Seneca in 0809 liberal arts, and then Humber comedy, and then you took Humber sitcom writing. So it was like, to me, I'm like, oh, that's the perfect path of someone who's learning an education in performance comedic arts, you know?
That is so crazy that you're on my LinkedIn. Let's start right there.
I do
That's
research, man. It's a real show.
that is fucked that you're on a LinkedIn. I don't even know the last time I was on LinkedIn. That's crazy, dude.
I'm
But
like
yeah,
that
I
Nardwar guy.
that's hilarious. I I don't even know how to really answer this because like it's so cliche, dude, when I say this that like comedy chose me. I know it's so fucking
Oh,
stupid,
no.
but
Yeah,
like
okay.
the way it happened was just so cliche and like I was at Seneca, was like trying to figure out what I'm doing, like the path that I want to go on and all this shit. And then I was like, no, fuck this. I'm writing funny ideas all the time and skits, and wanting to do live stand up and improv. And I mean, actually, I never wanted to do live stand up. That just always freaked me out. But I
Mm.
wanted to do like, SNL sketches and stuff. And I was going to start doing Second City classes. A buddy of mine saw an ad for um, a Humber comedy program on the subway. I was like, hey, man, you should check this out. I auditioned. I got in. I did stand up within the first 3 months because they make you. And, buddy, like I got off stage and I was like, this is it. I found it. I'm locked in. And I just went pot committed fully right then and there. And never really like, and then you kind of try to make the best judgment call you can as you go. Like, for example, the production of shows. Like I was finding that there wasn't as back then. It was like Joanna Downey's show on the damn fourth, and like just like I can't even tell you, dude. There was like maybe 5 shows in the city, like 10 Like not
Wow.
not many. And there was someone's gonna hear this and be like, this guy's an idiot, doesn't know what he's talking about. But at least to like me on the scene, like as a new
Yeah.
open micer at a Humber, there wasn't like nothing fancy backdoor comedy. There wasn't the corner yucks episode.
Yeah.
Like now there's like
An indie
seven or eight.
scene.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's an indie scene where like you could get fucking stage time, no problem. Back then, dude, I'd go to these shows and I'd watch like, Nick Beaton just fucking destroy, and he would, and then Chris Locke and like Deborah DiGiovanni, K Trev, DeBonus, like those are the guys that I'm watching all workout bits, and I'm like, they're never gonna let me on. Like I'm not even like, I've
Like
done
they're
2 sets.
killers. Yeah,
Yeah, they're
yeah.
killers, and like back then, like some of them weren't even headliners yet, but
Hmm.
they were still working on their shit, and you're like, okay, I got to produce shows. I got to have a bargaining chip. I got to figure this out. So that's why I started producing shows. That way I could get more stage time. I could book comics, and then be like, hey, man, put me on your show. I'll put you on my show and I'll pay you.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? So that was kind of like the approach that I went with.
And it's funny
I
how
don't know.
one thing always leads to another. Like, is that also in producing shows? Did that plant the seed of like, oh, I'm going to create, is it Funny Man Inc? Like
Yeah.
a kind of a comedy company where you can book other comedians to corporate gigs and live gigs.
Mhm.
Um, is that sort of where that came from? Was like the experience of producing shows?
Yeah. That right there was like, okay, I came up with the company, whatever, because everyone kept after shows would be like, man, they would be like, that's so funny, man. And I'd be like, oh, that's hilarious. And I just, whatever. There should be a comma in there, but whatever. Didn't want to do that. Anyways, I was like, yeah, let's start some monthly shit. And the monthly stuff turned into a lot of stuff. And then, I've had to adapt it over the years of like you said, corporates, just trying to do shows anywhere where there wasn't. I tried to view it a little bit more entrepreneurial, I guess,
Hmm.
than most people at the time. Because a lot of stuff you were seeing back in the day, like if it wasn't a comedy club, it was just a weekly show. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
then you started seeing guys like, DeBonus and Garrett Jameson came out with a lot comedy club. You started seeing independent shows that had a little bit more structure and
Yeah.
long not long form but like a higher scale, like more like theater shows happening on a consistent basis. Like Neil Banzel, he used to run a show. He's the new GFL burger. I'm sure you know who he is. Anyways, he used to run most races show on earth in the East End, and like there used to be
Yeah.
all these guys that would kind of do it like that. So like, yeah, I kind of just found myself being like, okay, let's just find a gap in the market here and
Yeah.
try to make money. And if the goal is to make money at this, I need to find as many revenue streams as possible. So
100%. That's the one thing that stand up really helps you with is like really diversifying your income. I remember
oh
like
yeah.
Rob Pugh said to me after a show, this is when I was like an open micer and we were hanging outside of Alta, and he was like, if you're gonna do comedy, also do hand modeling, do fucking anything else to just also bring in money. And like I've
Hmm.
heard Darren Frost have the same thing conversation. He was like, if you did every festival in Canada, you're not making that much money. Like you need to do other things as well. But I mean that
Yeah.
I kind of like that because I feel like comedians as people like doing many things, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah.
we're the type of personality that's like, I do this, but I can also do this. We're a little show offy in that in that regard. Like whether you're a writer or an actor, or now just like a content creator. But how do you, because I know comedians, a lot of comedians, maybe you can say they're stuck in their ways or it's just the way the system is. They view the stand up kind of ladder in the same way of like, you do these open mics, you get on the Pros and Joe shows, maybe you open on a weekend or host, and then you middle for a little bit. And then you move to headlining, and there's like this ranking that you go up through, right? You try to get on festivals. But how do you view the stand up landscape now that you've had this like kind of homegrown audience come in for your content? Like, are you feeling confident enough that you can kind of break away from that, or does part of you still want to, headline weekends at a club and try to, gain favor with certain clubs?
Okay. this is a two-part answer for
Yeah.
you here. Part one of this is it used to be that way. I used to think that literally a year ago, less. I used to sit there and say there is a ladder and this and that. And that actually what sparked me to do what I did back in the day, like with the show production and like creating my own runs. I don't want to call them tours and sound like a dick. But like, I used to like, go to Alberta because like I figured, okay, what do they want? They want someone who can middle. So stupid. Sorry. For some reason, when
Ew.
someone calls me, it patches out my headphones and my phone.
Uh,
My fault.
Add him in. No.
Dad, listen,
That'd be
you're on
so
the
great.
pot.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and no joke, my dad is trying to get me to pick up soil for my grandfather for the garden. This is the shit I'm going through at 30 years old. What the fuck's going on
Yeah.
here? So, like, Jesus, um, diversify your income by doing
Yeah,
fucking errands for your family. So,
yeah.
doing the runs for like in Alberta, right? Because I was like, okay, what do the clubs want? They want someone who can do like middle solidly, right? And at that time, I wasn't middling. I was like, they want someone who can do 45. If you go to Alberta, the openers are doing 30 and the headliners are doing 60 to 65. So you're like,
Wow.
okay. So like right away, I went to Alberta, tried and was like flexing that muscle. Then it was like move downtown and be a part of the circuit or get a car and be that guy on Facebook. Being like, I can drive if you give me 20 minutes. Right. So like, and I did that. So I'm like, okay, it's
Hmm.
time. Right. Because like all of us can, this is going to be so dumb. I don't mean that all of us can do the time. I just mean that like having an hour of jokes in 5 minute sets is not the same as being on stage for an hour, you know? And
Hmm.
when you first do it, being on stage for an hour for the first few times is exercising a totally different muscle. It doesn't even fucking matter if you have, you know, 6 10 minute bits. Because when you string those together and you're on stage for an hour at the 40-minute mark, when you're gassed, for some reason you're shitting the bed, even though the jokes work. So like you
Yeah.
have to exercise the ability to be on stage for an hour. So I kept doing shit like that, and I was like, let's climb the ladder. Now that I'm headlining clubs here, and all across fucking Canada, whatever, featuring some clubs in the U.S. and this and that, I notice it doesn't matter. And now with the content and the audience, and this is the problem in comedy that we've had is that comedy has adapted so much, like every 2 to 3 years in the last 15 years. It's just staggering. So now that content is giving people, the comics, anyways, the ability to put people in seats, that's all clubs really want, especially in the US. And here they're like, I don't give a fuck if you're funny because at that level, like where everyone like at like let's say at headliner level, when you get to the point where you've got an hour, you can crush anywhere in your country ish, you know what I mean, or do well.
Yeah.
You and 10,000 other comics can also crush and do well. It's not about if you're funny because at that point, everyone around you is funny. It's if you can put people in seats. So,
Hmm.
if you can't make them money and yourself money, they're just going to go to the guy who can. So, noticing that I can do that on my own, I'm now sitting here going, okay, it's build the fan base's priority over working on the time. But again, that's only because of where I'm at now. Whereas, if you don't have the time, still you should be working on your fan base because when you do have the time, the audience will be there to fucking
Yeah.
to support you,
And
So
I think it'll be the best audience to have for growing your stand up too, right? Because like even if you like to what you said, even if you come back on stage after, let's say, this album, we'll use you for example, and you have 30 minutes of jokes, but you're going to do an hour show, your audience is not going to really care for at least for the first 15 minutes how funny the show is because they're just pumped to see you in person, like they're a fan of your content. They already think you're funny. And now they're just getting to see you live. And it's more so about that experience than the way we viewed comedy in the past, where it's like it has to be funny, like there has to be, great moments throughout it. And sure, there does. You still want to put on a great show, but like it's going to be interesting to see in 10 years what this does to comedy
Yeah.
overall.
Well, that's the balance of like, A, will they see you again? And B, are you putting on a good enough show to get new fans? You know what I mean?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
like, there is a line where like people who consume content are not the same people who go to see stand-up shows live. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Live stand-up goers, the number is much, much less. Whereas everybody and their son and brother has an iPhone and is consuming content. Is that comedy content? Not really, not specifically, but you have a wider audience. Whereas people who go to see live stand-up, fuck, it might be like 15% of the North American population.
Yeah.
Like, it's so low in Canada specifically. I mean, in North America, it's probably still only 25%. You know what I mean? Globally, fuck, it's probably 4%. Who the fuck knows,
Yeah.
right? So, that's the struggle. So if you're actually going to get your fans to come and see you live, yeah, they're thrilled. They're like, oh, that's the guy that I've been watching on my phone. This is amazing.
Yeah.
They get that little celebrity feel, if you will. But if you stink, they're not coming to see you live again.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what I mean? That's it. Then you might as well just be doing fucking paid meet and greets and like a book signing,
You show up to like a Comic
Yeah.
Con.
Hey.
There we go. I gotta start that now too.
That's fine.
What was like, I love hearing the moment. Was there a moment where you realized that you found your voice on stage, if that makes any sense, where you watch back a tape and you were like, that's it?
I don't know.
Or are you
Like
still searching?
not an exact moment per se. It's more of like an evolution. And I found that, like I said, when I was listening back to my album and editing it, I okay, well, this is when I realized when I sucked. I did an album years ago and never put it out because I was like,
Uh-huh.
this is garbage. And
Yeah.
like I couldn't listen to it. I was like, dude, dripping sweat. Like,
Yeah.
you would have thought I ran through a marathon, the anxiety I went through listening to this because of how bad it was. But I was getting laughs and I was like, the reaction is good, but
Yeah.
what I'm listening to is so elementary. Like, it just, you're like, you would listen to it and be like, oh, this comic's clearly 2 years in. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can
Okay.
just
Yeah.
tell,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, you can just tell I was green, even though it was like I recorded it like 7, 8 years in, you know? So whereas when I recorded the other stuff, which was like, 10 years in, it was literally just a year and a half, 2 years later. But
Yeah.
I decided to put a little bit more practice and effort into it. But when I did it and I listened back, I then wrote a new, I want to say half hour, but realistically, it's like a solid 20, whatever. But this new 20 that I'm working on,
Yeah.
I listened to that and then the vinyl came in. I listened to the vinyl through and through and then was editing clips for socials of my new shit. And I was like, oh my God. I'm like, thank God I dropped that shit because not writing new shit as I was growing as a performer was regressing me. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So listening to this new shit where I'm like talking about an argument I had with my wife about dinosaurs not being real or whatever, the conspiracy, if they're fake or not, is a
Yeah.
real, yeah. That joke
Please,
that
I want to hear this full conversation.
yeah,
We got to hear like the story behind the joke, so people who are listening to your album, they come here and
dude,
see that.
the joke is legitimately is the story. Like, just we got into an argument, we are
Like,
watching a
cut to the
documentary.
joke. No.
Yeah, legit, I wish. But yeah, like that, I then would tell that on stage as just the story that happened and it's recent. So like I'm coming at it with like happy new energy as well as a evolved version of my previous stage self,
Mm.
which is like fucking a million times better. I'm getting the pops are bigger,
Yeah.
the energy in the room is better, like all of it. So I'm just like, I felt like I unlocked, like, I went from I became Charmeleon instead of Charmander. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
like I evolved a step. I'm Super
Yeah, yeah.
Saiyan 1. So that's kind
So many
of like,
90s references.
let's go, right?
I'm here for it. I'm 31, so
Yeah, same. I'm no, yeah, I'll be 33 at the end of the year.
yeah. It was
So I'm
funny
a
talking
90.
about the baby stuff. I was like having that conversation with my girlfriend too, because we're both like no, we don't want kids. We're not going to try to have kids. But then the
Mhm.
thought in my head, I was like, how egotistical of me that I think I could have kids, you know?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if my jizz works. Like, it might not. It might
Right.
not. You know,
It might
there's
not.
only one way to find out. Like
Yeah.
you're like immediately it just
Yo, immediately,
swam upstream to the top. It
buddy.
was like
Like
time.
legit. It was immediate. It was pretty wild. It was great.
Are you excited to be a dad though? Are you
I
nervous?
am.
What are you
I
feeling?
mean, listen, I'm all of the above because
Sure.
there's no rule book here. There, you can go on TikTok and be like, "Do we
Don't do that.
breastfeed at night?" And they're like, "No, you satanic prick!" And then they're like, "Yes, are you kidding me?" Right? Like,
Yeah.
everybody's so divided on every opinion on everything. So, I mean, it's going to be fun and exciting. I know it's going to bring me new material, and I've always wanted a family and to have my own and stuff. So I'm happy that's happening. I don't know if I'm ready for it per se, financially and mentally, but you never know. I just feel like you're never ready for anything until you figure it out.
No,
So
yeah, yeah.
yeah, and when
I feel
you,
like every time someone has a kid too, it just like unlocks this new part of your brain where you just go into this work mode where you're like, I have no choice but to get something to provide. So it's kind of like that early starving artist mentality where you're
right,
like, I really want this to work. So I'm gonna do everything I can to make it happen.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I really hope that clicks in, whatever that is. I hope I have that that happen to me.
You're like, send
So
it my way, man. Jesus.
legit though. So yeah, I mean, I'm all of the above. I'm looking forward to it because there's been a ton of effort and preparation, this and that, and it's like when you listen to our parents and grandparents, like were they ready? No,
No.
and they didn't even have half the research tools and just support and just in general resources that
Yeah.
we have now. So it's just like they
And
debunked everything. So
kids too, like we always think that that's always like a hesitation from a lot of people that have kids. They're like, oh, I don't know if I'm financially, ready to have kids. And sure, part of that is like how are we gonna afford diapers and all this extra cost? But I think the other half of that, and tell me if I'm wrong, is also like you want the child to have the life that you never had, right? Like you're trying to always improve your situation generation by generation. And Pampers stocked up. Somebody had a baby shower.
legit though, legit, I did. Like, and it's everywhere, bro. It's everywhere.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
like
yeah.
every door I open, there's just fucking
So I just stocked with Pampers.
yeah. Look,
But
it's everywhere. It's all behind me. It's
uh,
fucking just
but
bassinets. Fucking look at
every kid I've ever talked to though that grew up in like a poor environment, and I grew up in like a not poor but like middle class, whatever. We
Mhm.
didn't have everything we wanted, but we had stuff. I always viewed it as like this is the greatest childhood ever. You know what I mean? Because my parents were both there all the time raising me. I had a little brother. Like I didn't ever look at like I wonder what our socioeconomic situation is right now. Like
Yeah.
it never even occurs to most children that like their living situation is a problem, whereas the
Mhm.
parent is overly concerned about making everything, bigger and fancier than what they lived through.
Mhm. Yeah, and I mean it's even just a product of the times, right? Like I'm talking to you on my fucking phone right now.
Yeah,
That alone, they're gonna just grow up in a totally different environment than we did.
that's crazy. We're like I think we're the last generation to experience like no social media, no internet, no cell phones, play
Mhm.
outside until the streetlights come on, and then literally grew up as the technology came into play and then grew up with the technology.
I literally think, dude, that ends in 1994. If you are
Yeah,
1994 or older, you missed the boat. Because
you
my
missed
brother's
it.
a 95, dude, and he does not remember dial up, and he doesn't know that sound
My
that
brother's
dial up makes.
96. Yeah, he doesn't,
He has no idea.
no idea.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're absolutely right. It's fucking wild.
That's wild to think that we're a part
Yeah.
of, because I always look at it in terms of like centuries.
Hmm.
So you look at it now, it's like, damn, we're the equivalent to the humans that lived through 1890 into the early 1900s and then saw the Industrial Revolution. Like, I don't know if you've looked into AI, but like AI
Yeah.
is the new industrial revolution of this century. Like when it gets to 2090 or whatever, they're going to look back at this time period and be like, oh, that's when everything went fucking upside down. Like there was a yesterday or 2 days ago, someone made a fake Bloomberg account on Twitter, paid $8 and got it verified. It was like Bloomberg page or something they called it. Then they posted fake AI photos. I guess that's redundant. AI photos of the Pentagon on fire, and the S&P 500 lost like $500 billion or something. It just plummeted because they thought it was real. So like everyone fucking pulled out and the market just crashed.
Wow.
I'm like, holy shit.
Damn. Yeah, and we're just at the fucking tip of the iceberg on this
And
one.
that's probably just some dude in Iowa that did that. You know what I mean? Like that's what's
Oh
so
my
crazy
God.
about it. Like it could be anyone.
Legit though. And then you know what, dude? Like, not to bring that full circle back to the baby thing, but that's kind of what worries me a little bit
Mm.
is like when do you give a kid a cell phone? Because like I have cousins, for example, that are in going to first year university. Hopefully they
Mm-hmm.
don't listen to this, but they they don't have a cell phone. Sorry, they
Mm.
have cell phones now, but they didn't get them till really late. Now that was their parents' choice, and I understand it. But a part of me was like, do you understand what you're doing? Because I know kids, dude, that are like 7 and have a monetized YouTube channel and are like, the dad runs it and has like mapped out this fucking
Ryan's toy
marketing funnel.
reviews. Have you heard of
Yeah,
that? He's
yeah,
like the top earning YouTuber in like 2017. He made like $25 million.
dude, it's
They're set for
fucking,
life. Like,
it's nuts, dude.
you know what?
Because
How
you're,
I think you teach it to teach the phone to a child like a tool, like the same way you would teach them how to use a hammer. Be like, you can use this hammer to break stuff. That's the wrong thing to do, or you can build beautiful things with it. Let's try to do that, and you can do the same thing with a phone. I think.
yeah, and like that's just where I'm concerned is like, do I now being in the content game, I'm probably going to be like, listen, pal, we're going to get you you're going to get an Instagram account, you're going to get a
Yeah,
YouTube account, right out the fucking gate.
that's what
But
DJ Khaled did for his kid. He already has like crazy amount of followers on Instagram. Like,
1,000,000%, dude. And there's so many people that I follow where they're like, again, it was a comic, and then his single comedy page then branched out into like a couples page, then a family
uh,
page.
yeah,
All of them
yeah,
have over 1 million followers, and you're like, this guy's caking just on the viewership alone. It's
insane.
nuts. It's
Although that
insane.
stuff is very cringe to see in person. I was like, I think it was last summer. I was walking down like by the beach there, and then I hear this scream, and I was like, that sounds like a child being kidnapped. Like, what the fuck? So I'm looking around to see like where this scream is coming from, and I look over and I see this like little boy, looks to be like her brother, fighting, like pushing her or whatever, and she's screaming. And I was like, where the hell is this kid's parents? And then I look to the right, and there's a dad standing there filming it, and then they stopped screaming, and then he pointed like around the bush, like let's move locations. All right, that scene's done. Like they were filming like a fake, like I fought with my brother at the park video, here's what happened kind of shit. It was weird. I just know that if like my dad was like, all right kids, let's go to the park to shoot some content, I'd be like, what? Like, can I just go on the swings or something? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely that part of it that's like, you don't want it to be a job. You know what I
yeah.
mean? You don't want it to feel like work and you're taking away their childhood. It's like, then you're going to be just fucking, Michael Jackson's dad all over again?
Or every fucking dance mom, whatever those shows are called. I'm sure you've
Brutal.
been in audition rooms. Like you've seen
Yeah.
maybe if there was like a kid that was also auditioning, there's that parent that's there that's just like way too into the whole acting thing more
Oh,
than the kid wants. It's horrible to watch. You're
it's
like, this
horrible,
is
dude.
it's like child labor. What are we making kids act for?
Legit. Even though I'm
Like,
like, dude, my friend, he's got his son is like the most beautiful child I've ever seen. And I
So
know
we
that's fucked up
started
to
an
say.
OnlyFans.
No, but I told him, I'm like, bro, the fact that you're not putting this
Yeah,
kid in
yeah.
like
That's
in
so
modeling
funny.
or
Yeah.
like commercials for children is crazy.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like, he's beautiful. And he's like, are you a pedo? And I'm like, what's wrong with you, bro? No, but like,
He's a,
you know,
you want me to sell my baby to the Illuminati?
yes,
He's reading too many of those blogs. He's like, you want me to give up his adrenochrome? That's what you're saying to me right now.
that's
To
fine.
the lizard people, Mark. Really.
Yeah,
The lizard
we're
people that
gonna
run Hollywood.
we're gonna have to just do a little blood sacrifice in the basement.
Yeah. But hey, you'll get the Sears catalog. It's coming back.
Yeah, exactly. But listen, we'll give you $2,000 of a buyout for
Yeah.
this entire fucking Pampers run.
That's a sketch right there. Like, he's like, is that what you're doing? And he's like, $2,000. He's like, all right, where do I sign?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
that's all it took to just break his morals.
Yeah,
He's like, hold on,
that's
you said
funny.
35% royalties? All right.
Yeah, like no, just $2,000
Yeah.
total. You never see a dime after that. Okay.
All right. Let me think it over.
Legit.
One question that I love asking my guests too is if you can make a phone call to 15-year-old Mark and give him a piece of advice based on what you know now, knowing that it doesn't affect your current timeline. So whatever you tell him will not change your life in any way, but you have this rare moment to talk to a 15-year-old version of yourself.
Damn, bro, you're gonna hit me with something like that. You cocksucker.
Comedy Nardwar.
I'd probably be like, I'd be like, do comedy sooner. But no, do comedy sooner and trust your gut, like gut instinct on shit. Um, this is terrible what I'm saying. Do comedy sooner, trust your gut instincts, and like you're good enough because there's too many things, too many times where I don't progress and I'm like, why not? It's because I don't think I'm as good as everybody else, or I don't think that
Mm-hmm.
it's funny, or I'm like, oh, this sucks. Don't put it out. It's like, no, man, put it out, do it because it is funny. It will appeal to people, and it is good enough, and it is great. You're just in your fucking head. So it's like, get out of your head and just do it, get it done, do it sooner because you're just going to end up doing it anyways. So you're just prolonging the inevitable and stretching your timeline, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's great advice, man. Just do
I
it.
guess.
I
Just do it.
guess.
You're like, Mark, this is a Nike commercial. What are you doing?
Thanks, Nike.
Legit.
Insert Nike ad.
People ask me how I keep my teeth from chattering in the wintertime. I leave them in my locker.
No. I'm giving
Insert
myself editing prompts.
Yeah, I love that. That's very funny.
I took it from I don't know if you've ever heard of Rick Glassman. He's like an LA comic. He has this
Oh, yeah.
amazing podcast called Take Your Shoes Off. And
Yeah.
his editor John Michael does the best shit. Like he'll just say stuff in the middle of the podcast that you're like, what? How is he possibly gonna? And then it just appears in front of you. So
That's unreal.
I've started like doing that with my podcast episodes where if I'm like talking about something, I'm like, this is a visual experience. Like, why not just share the thing that I'm talking about?
Mhm.
Like the podcast doesn't have to just be strict to the conversation. Like where I said throw in an ad, I might just put together an ad advertising your comedy album.
Well, that'd be awesome.
Just insert it in the middle of the conversation. I just love funny shit like that.
No, that's great. I love that.
Yeah. Do you have anything to plug? Anything you want the people to check out? This will come out June 2nd. Not this Friday, but next Friday.
Yeah. Yeah, my comedy vinyl, man. It's a piece of memorabilia. My first piece of collector's memorabilia, if you will, because no one has a vinyl player. If you do, it's for you. If you don't,
Yeah.
that's great. If you do, great. If not, then it's one of those. I spent a lot of time and effort making the covers, the inside. It's all designed in-house. It's actually just photos of like my nonna's dinner table. It's called Well Fed. You open it, it looks like you're sitting down at my nonna's table.
I love that.
Yeah, so a lot of effort, 2 hours of material. I only printed a very short supply just because they cost so much to make. So get them on my website, marcanth.com, along with any other shit. And come see me live, man.
Go see him live. And I'm sure you'll post dates on your Instagram too. Instagram is not Marc Anthony. Same thing on Twitter. On TikTok, it's not _ Marc Anthony. Is marcanth.com still your website where they can find stuff too?
Yeah.
And then we've also, that's just the link tree there. All the stuff will be in the description below, but go check out the album Well Fed. And you can go to Funny Man too. Book some shows through there. It's a beautiful website.
It's actually terrible. It's being totally redone. So.
Really?
Oh yeah.
It's me looking at it. I'm like, it's nice. I like it.
Yeah. I'm like, comics I haven't booked in fucking 8 years.
They're still on the
the
roster.
Cover, and I'm not. What a stupid.
Just
so
free advertising.
Legit, yeah.
Is there anything that you want to say to the audience before we head out?
No. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Keep supporting this podcast. Johnny's awesome. Keep laughing. Let's try to find more comics, guys. Keep looking for local funny talent.
That's the best thing that you can do for us, for sure. Go hit that subscribe button. Go patreon.com/TheJohnnyRogers. You get these episodes ad-free, exclusive before anyone else. But for now, I've been your host, Johnny Rogers. This has been Marc Anthony. We'll see you on the next one.
You've been listening to The Johnny Rogers Show. New episodes air every Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.